Harrison Ford is the most recognizable and possibly most loved of all modern action heroes. His enduring appeal comes not from brute strength or superpowers, but from his weary charm. His boy-next-door good looks, intelligence, and subtlety have made him a box office favorite, and many of his most loved characters reflect the paradox which is obvious within the man himself. He's a sensitive man of action, full of doubt and vulnerability. In 2006, at the premiere of Firewall, a thriller directed by Ron Howard, Harrison revealed why his combination of strength and sensitivity works so well.
You know, I think emotion is the language of film. I think it's very important to establish an emotional context and to keep that going throughout the film. That's how an audience identifies with you, not intellectually, but emotionally in ways that they can't really control.
Many of Harrison's on-screen characters have become household names in their own right. In 2008, he was still the third highest-grossing US actor in Hollywood, with box office receipts of his films adding up to more than $6 billion. Such blockbusting success was far in the future, when he was born to Dorothy, a former radio actress, and Christopher, an advertising executive and former actor, in Chicago in July 1942. Harrison has German and Irish Catholic lineage on his father's side and Jewish heritage on his mother's side. Not initially interested in drama, Harrison reportedly only took acting classes in his first year of college in order to meet women, and the acting bug bit. Instead of graduating, he took off to LA on the promise of a job in radio voiceovers. After the job fell through, he stayed in Hollywood, fitting in bit parts around his real job as a carpenter, which he took to support his first wife Mary and his 2 sons. It was making cabinets for George Lucas that landed him his first important role in American Graffiti. Harrison was only one of a number of young actors who would become stars from this humble film, including Ron Howard, Richard Dreyfuss, and Suzanne Summers. It also kick-started the career of director-producer George Lucas, who would play a huge part in Harrison's professional life. In 1975, George asked his former carpenter to read lines for actors being cast in what he called his space opera, Star Wars. But Harrison's reading ended up landing him the job. George cast him as Han Solo in what was to become the highest-grossing film of all time, a role that was to turn Harrison from an actor into a superstar. In 1995, he confessed he'd always known it would be a hit.
I thought it was special in that the characters that the three of us played, Mark Hamill, Carrie Fisher, and myself, the characters that we played had a very good story going. There was a sort of a story that I recognized and had heard before in other fairy tale forms. I thought that part of the movie would work well. It seemed to be a story well told. And then when you added on top of that all the effects and which at that time were unique. Nobody had ever done anything like this before. I thought it would be a big hit.
Han Solo was the rugged anti-authoritarian sidekick to hero Luke Skywalker in the first 3 Star Wars films. It was rumored that Harrison asked George to kill off his character, but the writer-director refused. The extraordinary success of the Star Wars series made Harrison, George, and many others associated with the work extremely rich. However, it was his next big role that was to turn Harrison into an action icon, thanks once again to George Lucas.
Well, it's before I went into the second trilogy, I kind of had to accept the fact that this was going to be my life, that my middle name was going to be Star Wars, and there wasn't anything I could do about it. So what difference did it make after that? So after that, I kind of came to terms with the fact that that was the way my life was going to be defined. Although now everybody, the only question anybody asks is, when is the next Indiana Jones coming out? So nobody seems to worry about the next Star Wars. They're all worried about the next Indiana Jones.
Harrison Ford is Indiana Jones, a wild and unorthodox archaeologist who ventures into the world's most dangerous places, and the world fell in love with his reluctant, swashbuckling ways. Directed by Steven Spielberg and produced by George Lucas, the first film, Raiders of the Lost Ark, was released in 1981 and quickly attracted a huge legion of fans. 2 sequels followed, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom in 1984 and Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade in 1989, which turned out to be a bit of a misnomer. In 2008, at the age of 65, the star reprised his much-loved role in the 4th installment, Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, and he showed his fans that the joints may creak, but he still had the goods to deliver. At the US premiere, he recalled his first moments back on set.
Well, the first thing that Steven decided to do was have me thrown into the side of a car and fall on the ground. So I knew I was back.
Modern action films are increasingly replacing expensive and dangerous live stunts with computer-generated sequences. But Harrison and Steven were determined to make the magic happen on set, rather than in the digital realm.
Well, we do it the old-fashioned way. We do real live action. We don't do a lot of CGI on the stunt stuff. We thought it was better to keep it sort of human scale rather than be bigger than anything you've ever seen. We want the concentration to be on the story, not on the kinetic.
Harrison's co-star Shia LaBeouf was impressed that the superstar did not appear to have let his fame and fortune go to his head.
He's the man. He's the most professional man I've ever met in my life. He's not a complainer. He's a hard-working person. He's just he does the grunt work, stuff guys in that position don't normally do.
Harrison may have been blasé about his late return to the action-based film, but he also showed his skin was a little thin when he was asked if he needed to do any kind of special preparation.
Well, any fool would go to the gym if you're going to do this kind of a movie. So, no, it's just normal, keeping fit so that you don't get hurt. That's all.
At the Cannes premiere, Harrison told the press he was indifferent to the lukewarm critical response to The Crystal Skull. He knew exactly who they were making the film for.
I expect to have the whip turned on me. It's not unusual for something that is popular to be disdained by some people. And I fully expect it, and I'm not really worried about it. I work for the people who pay to get in. They are my customers, and my focus is on providing the best experience I can for those people.
Han Solo and Indiana Jones can be said to be the leading men in Harrison's career, this doesn't undermine the many other roles he's made his own. From his professional breakthrough in the early 1970s through to his present-day work, the actor has appeared in a number of seminal films and played an impressive range of leading characters. As Detective Rick Deckard in the cult classic Blade Runner, his disillusioned coolness has been influencing science fiction and noir remakes ever since. But it was Witness, the celebrated Peter Weir thriller, that brought Harrison his first serious accolades, with nominations for an Academy Award, Golden Globe and a BAFTA. In 1993, he was Dr. Richard Kimball in the remake of The Fugitive, a role that saw him nominated for a second Golden Globe Award. Then, in 1997, he played the President of the United States in the Wolfgang Peterson thriller Air Force One. Harrison was more than happy to take on another action role.
I'm still having a good time doing it. I've always liked physical acting, storytelling. I love rolling around on the floor and being a kid. And it doesn't hurt any much more than it ever did. So I'm enjoying doing it.
The German director felt Harrison had a certain quality which made him the perfect candidate for the role of one of the most powerful men on earth.
Harrison Ford he has everything what you need for a president who is also a physical man and is forced to fight back. First of all, I think he's the American actor. Like, I don't know if I compare him with a Gary Cooper, a little bit Clint Eastwood, or one of these legendary heroic guys who are very American, very trustworthy. I think Harrison just tells you what you see, that's what you get.
As always, Harrison looked for something above and beyond the purely physical.
Well, as David Letterman said, this is the kick-ass president. But if it were only that, I wouldn't be very interested. There is a very strong emotional underpinning for this whole film. There are very interesting moral questions raised and attempted to be answered.
The same year saw the release of another action thriller, The Devil's Own. This time, Harrison played a streetwise cop, and his equally famous co-star was Brad Pitt. Next, he proved his versatility by dropping the tough guy stance to play opposite a very different kind of co-star, when he was paired with Anne Heche in the romantic film 6 Days and 7 Nights. All too aware that he could become typecast, Harrison had kept his eyes and ears open for projects that cast him outside of his action hero mold.
Well, I always try to do different things from time to time, and it's hard to find comedy these days. I think that, I've had a hard time finding the ones I wanted to do.
As the star of the film, he was instrumental in casting the lesser-known Anne, in a role which many leading ladies would have put their hands up for.
I think she's terrific. I thought she was terrific when we read her for the part. We read her about 3 times. We considered a lot of different actresses. Anne brought some unique aspects, which are Anne's personality, to the relationship. She brought wit, understanding, kind of style, grace to it all, and a steely determination. There's a real backbone to that character, and she doesn't just act it. That's part of who Anne is.
The following year, he was back in another romantic clinch, this time with Kristin Scott Thomas, in the Sidney Pollack-directed Random Hearts. Pollack wanted to portray an edgier, tougher kind of love, and Harrison found himself out of his comfort zone.
These two characters have a love scene, a sex scene, if you will, that comes out of rage and frustration and proximity and the sexual atmosphere of Miami, and they get in a car together, and she begins to beat on him, and then it turns into lovemaking. It's it's an odd scene, very odd, but very emotionally believable, I think.
He played against type as the malevolent Dr. Norman Spencer in What Lies Beneath. Then in 2003, he took a surprising career shift into action comedy in Hollywood Homicide. The actor came into the Ron Shelton project in an unusual way.
So I didn't actually have a script here. I agreed to do this film on the basis of a very strong concept that Ron pitched to me. And as we developed the script, I had a degree of input which made me comfortable with not having a script. And so what I was really looking to do was make a very strong audience film, and be in a kind of comedy where I could get a chance to really push it, not a drawing room comedy exactly, but something a little bit more guts to it.
It was hard to tell what young co-star Josh Hartnett was most excited about, working with Harrison Ford or having the opportunity to drive LA police cars.
I crashed one, and I still maintain it wasn't my fault. I think Ron would agree with me. The director would agree with me. Harrison's just stirring the pot, trying to get people excited, and I didn't almost kill him, as much as he persisted I did. But,
In 2006, he was back in thriller mode in Firewall, and at over 60 years old, he was more than happy to justify his practice of doing many of his own action sequences.
First of all, I don't do stunts, I do physical acting. It's all arranged and choreographed so that it's safe to do it. And the other element that's important is that it can be captured on film correctly, with the energy preserved. But what's important, I think, is to feel the emotional continuity with the character, and to sense his triumph and feel his pain and his exhaustion. And you can't do that when you're on the back of a stuntman's head. You got to be in the face of the character.
Despite his age, Harrison continues to prefer roles which require both a physical and emotional challenge.
I enjoy doing it because it's physical exercise, because it's work. You get a sweat going, and after you're sitting around on your ass for 3 or 4 months wearing a suit and getting rained on, it feels good to roll around on the floor with a couple guys.
Harrison Ford has always made it clear that there is real life and life in the film industry, and the two should never be intertwined. His desire for a healthy work-life balance has meant that he has refused to live the frantic schedule that many other leading men endure.
I'm busy enough doing 1 movie a year, and then I'd like to get away and go back to life, real life, with my family, and take care of that part of my life, and then go back to work again.
His desire for privacy is difficult to fulfill, considering he is now a multimillionaire film star. He certainly wasn't able to stay out of the spotlight when his 20-year marriage to his second wife, Melissa Matheson, hit the rocks, and he was hit with a divorce bill of $85 million. His subsequent romance with Ally McBeal star Callista Flockhart has also kept him in the gossip pages. The couple are now engaged. As well as Malcolm and Georgia, his 2 children from his marriage to Melissa, Harrison has 2 sons, Benjamin and Willard, from his first marriage, and he has also adopted Callista's adopted son, Liam. In 2008, he was involved in a unique campaign to bring the consequences of deforestation to the public's attention. Perhaps inspired by the famous waxing scene in the comedy 40-Year-Old Virgin, he agreed to wax his own chest. The same year, he joined a new initiative of the World Bank to save the endangered tiger from extinction. The Tiger Conservation Initiative brought together scientists, wildlife experts, and governments to try and stop the thriving illegal trade in tiger parts for traditional Asian medicines. And while Harrison may be circumspect when it comes to discussing his film roles, he was happy to promote this crucial campaign.
I'm here to celebrate the World Bank's plan to form a global alliance of conservation partners to work with the tiger range nations in order to secure a future for these magnificent creatures. In order to save the tiger, we must, of course, secure the critical reserves of biodiversity where they live.
In 2006, he received the Jules Verne Spirit of Nature Award for his work in nature preservation. Harrison admits that his community work has been influenced by one of his landmark roles. Since playing archaeologist Indiana Jones, he served as a general trustee on the governing board of the Archaeological Institute of America, helping publicize their mission to safeguard public treasures and prevent the illegal sale of antiquities. A committed Democrat, Harrison volunteered as a food server near Ground Zero in September 2001, and 1 year later, he was one of a number of celebrities who were interviewed about how the events of September 11 had changed America and her citizens. Unlike many others at the time, he wasn't backward in suggesting that his country needed to take some responsibility for what had happened.
I think it's wise that we reflect on why that happened, and we change behaviors to affect some changes in the world. And I mean other things than military reactions.
Despite missing out on major awards to date, Harrison knows that he's been offered many fantastic opportunities. Back in 1995, he knew he was on a roll.
I mean, I have been enormously lucky in my career and continue to be lucky.
In 2007, he was at the celebrations for another lucky man and action hero, this time perhaps the greatest of them all. Sean Connery was awarded the 34th AFI Lifetime Achievement Award, and Harrison was there to hand him the tribute.
He's my father, my mentor, my inspiration. Great man, wonderful occasion. I'm delighted to be here to honor.
Ironically, when Sean worked alongside Harrison and George Lucas on an Indiana Jones set, he almost took over.
Working with him was a great pleasure and a real thrill, and he was great to work with. And we had a lot of fun making the Indiana Jones film, and he, fell right into the role. And we had to calm him down a little bit from time to time because, after all, he is the Indiana Jones-like character. We had to make sure that he was the, clueless professor character, but he always wanted to take charge. But he's a good actor, and he resisted the temptation.
But no one else can be Indiana. No matter what else Harrison has done or will do in the future, he will always be remembered for the whip-cracking, iconic archaeologist.